Hello, we are starting chapter 6 of the laws of Lashon Harah. So until now we've been talking about, in general, the laws about speaking Lashon Harah, when it's prohibited, some cases that are allowed. Now we're going to be talking about the prohibition of listening to Lashon Harah. In addition to a prohibition of speaking evil about others, there's also a prohibition to listen to evil spoken about others. So let's get started. Chapter 6, Halacha 1. Aser lekabel lashon hara min haTorah ben shehu mehadvarim sheben adam lamakom o mehadvarim sheben adam lechavero. It is forbidden to accept lashon hara on a Torah level, whether the lashon hara is regarding things about mitzvos between man and God, or whether it's between mitzvos between man and man. So if someone comes and tells you that so and so, he doesn't sit in a sukkah, he doesn't eat kosher food, he does XYZ, or he says so and so is a thief, he's a murderer, you're not allowed to believe him. You cannot believe him. Dehainu shalonamin bilibenu shehasipur hu emes. You're not allowed to believe in your heart that the story is true. Ki al yedei zeh yevuze be'einei binyano mishenemar alav afilu im lo yaskim lo beferish l'sipuro dim lav hachi hari hu shona es avon b'kiflaim shehu mesaper makabel. Says you're not allowed to believe in your heart what was told about this individual that it's true, because then he's going to be denigrated. He'll have a lower status in your eyes, and he says that's even when you don't agree with what the person is saying, which is a worse sin. Meaning, if someone comes to you and says that so and so is a thief, and you agree with him, you say yep. Not only do you violate the prohibition there of listening to Lashon Hara, but you also violate the prohibition of speaking Lashon Hara, because you are agreeing with what he said. So even if you don't do that, you still violate a prohibition. So what happens if you hear Lashon Hara? What if you hear something negative? So it's a very hard halacha to follow, but it can be done. You're not allowed to believe the person. You can't believe him. There are so many reasons in general when you hear something that you should not accept it's true. You see this many times with great rabbis. When they hear something negative about somebody, they don't believe that it's true. And very often it turns out that it's not true. Now, we're going to talk about later, does that mean if you hear that someone's a thief, and let's say you're about to go into business with somebody, and you hear that he's a thief, does that mean you just have to ignore what the person told you? So, of course not. You're allowed to be worried about it and to investigate, but you are not allowed to believe it in your heart. Sorry, just pause a second because I saw the video paused for some reason. But if the Facebook video isn't good quality, I'll be posting a YouTube version, which is generally better quality. Okay, let's continue. V'amakabel over b'leisasei. Someone who believes Lashon Hara, listens to it, he violates a prohibition. Shenemar lo sisa shemei hashav. You shouldn't hear a false report, shouldn't bear a false report. V'amru chachmeinu zal. But mechota, the rabbis explain this verse. Shezu hi ashara l'makabel Lashon Hara. This is a prohibition for accepting Lashon Hara. U'levad sharlav v'asin hamitztarfim lazeh. K'mashakaz v'lev b'psicha ayin sham. So that's one of the prohibitions. But if you remember in the introduction to Sefer Chavetz Chaim, we learned there are actually many prohibitions that apply to listening to Lashon Hara. V'amru chazal, shekol hamakabel Lashon Hara, roi lahashlichu leklavim. Somebody who believes Lashon Hara, it's fitting that they should be thrown to the dogs. Shenemar lo sisa shemei hashav, v'samach le leklav tashlichon oso. Because the verse of not hearing, not bearing a false report is close to the verse of giving meat to dogs, non-kosher meat. Od amru shegadol onesh hamakabel yoser min ha'omru. And he says not only that, but the sin of listening to Lashon Hara is even greater, is even worse than actually speaking Lashon Hara. Now he says here, if there's a tzad schus, meaning if the story that you hear is not objectively negative, or there's part of the story that you can interpret or if you can interpret the story in a positive way, then you're allowed to believe it. Let's say, for instance, someone says, I saw Shmuel taking money out of the tzedakah box. So maybe you could believe it because you could say, well, I'm sure it's true that this fellow saw Shmuel taking money out of the tzedakah box, but he probably didn't see him putting a 20 and taking change, right? Whereas if someone would come to tell you, I saw Shmuel go into the store and robbed it at gunpoint, you're not allowed to believe it. But if you hear a story which can be interpreted in a positive way, you could believe the facts of the story just with the positive interpretation. Okay, now let's continue. Halacha Beis, number 2. Afal pi shmias lashon hara levad gam ken yesh iser min haTorah, after be'es hashmiya ein bedaito lekabel as hadavar keven shemata aznav lishmoa. So let's say, what can you do this? Can you say, I'm going to listen to the lashon hara, but I'm not going to believe it? Not allowed to do that. Even if you have in your mind that, you see a group of people gossiping and you want to join, you want to hear the gossip, but you say, I'm not going to believe it. You're still not allowed to go and listen. However, there's a differentiation between listening and accepting in a few topics. When we say the prohibition of listening, that's only prohibition if it's not relevant to you. But if it's relevant to you in the future, מתחילה להכניסו בעסקו או להשתתף עמו או לעשות שדך עמו וכל כגוונה, מותר לכתחילה לשמוע כדי לחוש לזה או לשמר ממנו, כיוון דמה שהוא רוצה לשמוע, אין כוונתו, I'll translate in a second, אין כוונתו לשמוע גנוסו של חברו, רק הוא רוצה להציל את עצמו כדי שילבו אחר כך לידי הזק או לידי מצה ומריבה וכגוונה. He says, there is a case where you're allowed to listen. Let's say you want to go into business with Shmuel. You're about to do a big deal, multi-million-dollar deal, and someone comes over to you and says, I heard you're going into a business deal with Shmuel. There's something I think you should know. And now you want to listen to what he says because you want to protect yourself. In that case, since it's directly relevant to you, you're allowed to listen to what he says. Now, you're still not allowed to believe it as truth, but you are allowed to be worried about it, and you're allowed to investigate what this person told you and to protect yourself. And you're even allowed to cancel the business deal based on what this person told you. But you're just not allowed to believe in your heart that it's true. This is also true when it's not relevant directly to you, but it's relevant to somebody else. Right? Let's say you have a friend who's going into business with Shmuel, and you want to hear what this person has to say so you could warn your friend. Or not necessarily warn your friend, but find out and then tell your friend. Right? It's you want to hear what this guy has to say so you can investigate. See if it's true. Maybe he's saying something that so and so did something wrong, and you want to find out if it's true so you can give him rebuke. And through you could, maybe you're a rabbi and someone's saying something about somebody that he keeps on doing some sin, and you want to hear it so you can investigate so that you can speak to this person and perhaps help him repent. Or maybe he's saying somebody stole something and you want to help this person return the return the stolen object. Or you want to appease somebody that this person was denigrated. That's allowed. But even this, he says, what we mentioned, even when you're listening to Lashon Hara for a relevant purpose, you're not allowed to believe in your heart that it's true. Again, this is a very difficult halacha, but it can be done. You hear something negative about somebody where it's relevant to you, you're allowed to be worried, meaning you're allowed to investigate to find out, let's see if this is true, and you don't have to go into a business transaction with somebody if you're worried, or if you want to go into a shidduch or something like that, but you're not allowed to believe in your heart that it's true. Now, you're only allowed to listen to Lashon Hara when it's perhaps relevant to you or relevant to somebody else. He writes in the Ber Ma'im Chaim, the Chafetz Chaim, that there are two situations where this is allowed. So one is when you know the speaker is speaking this negative thing about somebody because he wants to help you. He's doing it for a purpose. But if you see that this person comes to you and let's say our case about Shmuel, you're going into a business deal with Shmuel, and this guy comes and he starts blasting Shmuel and saying how bad he is. And you see that he doesn't want to help you necessarily. He just wants to denigrate Shmuel because he hates Shmuel. You're actually not allowed to listen to the Lashon Hara in that case. Why? Because even though you're listening to the Lashon Hara for a positive purpose and you're not doing any sin in and of itself, but since he has in mind to denigrate Shmuel, you're helping him do that sin. So you're not allowed to do that. However, if this guy was already talking in front of a group of people and denigrating Shmuel because he hates Shmuel, and you want to come here because it's relevant to you, then you're allowed because he didn't start talking because of you. So again, two scenarios where you're allowed to listen. Again, it's only when it's relevant to something in the future for you to know. One is where this person comes to you and says, hey, I want to share some relevant information with you. I heard you're going into business, and you could tell that the person isn't just doing it to denigrate somebody. And two, even though the person is doing it to denigrate somebody, he already started speaking in front of a group of people, so you are not causing him to sin. Now, just to mention here, where you're not causing him to sin because he was already talking. If you notice, when we were talking about listening to Lashon Harah to warn your friend that your friend wants to go into a business deal with Shmuel, and now you hear somebody who is sharing some negative information about Shmuel that he's a thief. So are you allowed to go tell your friend? So we would think for sure. So I just want to say that it doesn't seem so clear from the Chavetz Chaim that you're allowed to go tell him right away until you clarify that what this person said is true. Because if you'll notice, the Makor Chaim here says you can listen to your friend. You could listen so that you can investigate. Right? It sounds like before you tell your friend and warn him, don't go into business with Shmuel, you shouldn't just transmit the gossip you heard, but you actually have to put in the effort to find out if the gossip is true, and then if you clarify that it's true, then you could tell your friend. And there's actually there's a lot of places where this specific case comes up, and we'll see more as they come along. But from here, for sure, it sounds that if you hear something negative and you want to warn your friend about it, you should first investigate it to figure out if it's true, because if you don't investigate it to figure out if it's true, then there might still be a prohibition, or it's not so clear. So again, there's a prohibition to believe Lashon Harah, and even if you're not even allowed to listen to Lashon Harah on condition that you're not going to believe it, the only case you're allowed to listen to Lashon Harah is if it's relevant to you in the future, that you want to protect yourself. And even in that case, you're not allowed to believe it in your heart. You're just allowed to protect yourself and what's called to be choshesh. Hope you have a beautiful day.